All right, so we've been creating methods that receive data, that send data, and so now we're just going to kind of put it all together, and we are going to create a method that receives more than one piece of data, 2 parameters, and also sends back a value. So I've already kind of started taking the liberty of changing some things up a little bit. This is similar to what we've done before, and I'll just show you what I started. So we have our main method, and our main method is going to call getName. It's going to call this method. This method is going to get the name from the user, and it's going to return that value as a string. Remember that I need to set up a variable, a string variable that receives that value, and so everything is good there. So the next thing I'm going to do, we're going to do a method that prints out the age and the name of the user. So I wanted to create a second method called getAge, which I bet you can guess from the method name. Ideally, you can guess what the purpose of this particular method is, and that would be to get the user's name. So I've set up some code ahead of time, and I did this write line. Obviously, we need to prompt our user. And I have read line, which has got me a red squiggly line. Why is that? And I want to get a value of age, which is an integer. I'm returning age as an integer, so that all looks good. I want to receive the value, so I have to get age. So the idea is that I get the age from the user. That goes into this variable, which then gets returned as an int. And I need to capture, oh, this should have been user age. Sorry about that. I don't know, I got carried away there. So I want to capture the user age here. But what's this red squiggly line doing? Well, it's trying to remind me that anytime I receive a read line from the keyboard, even though the user typed in 32, you and I both think of that as an integer, but the program doesn't. C# thinks that that's no matter what you put in there, it's going to try and convert it into a string. So that would actually be the string and not the integer. So in order to convert this to the integer, I need to type int parse, which says parse whatever was received into an integer. So we're casting it, right? That should sound familiar. We're casting the value as an integer. So now we've got a valid input. So take the string that's received, convert it into an integer, and now everything is copacetic. So that's awesome. All right, so now what we're going to do then is create that method that I have alluded to, where we're going to create a static method. Right now I'll type void, but we're actually going to return a value. We're going to call this print age and name, and we're going to receive 2 values then. We're going to receive an int, which is an age, and we're going to ask to receive a string, which is a name. Okay. And we should be able to print that information out. So write line, user, let's just do name, and then placeholder for the names. So we'll put that. Maybe we'll have it write a new line, age, and then a placeholder for the age. Okay, and then we need to put those in order, name and age. So that should work. All right, that's all looking good. Let's just run that and make sure it's doing what we think it's supposed to do. So let's go back to verify I have what I need here. I am getting the username. I got the age, but I didn't actually call that method. So let's call that method. It's not returning any values, so I don't need to set up a variable to receive a value. Print age and name looks correct. I need to send it, looks like 2 things I need to send it. First in order, I need to send in the age, so that is user age. And then it says, looks like it's bolded, it says I need a string which represents the name. That must be username, so I'm good there. So all should look good, and I'm just going to go ahead and run this. I'm going to run it without debugger mode this time, start without debugging. And let's just verify that it's in fact working. What is your name? I'll be Kirsten today, but I'll definitely lie about my age. I'll put 21, and it's printing that out. So that looks super good. But I also told you that I was going to finish this example up by returning a value. So let's do this. Let's return, because we haven't played with this particular, let's play with Kirsten Talk. Booleans. We haven't played with Booleans yet. Boolean receives simply a true or false, that's all. And so we're just going to return true, indicating that we printed it out successfully. Obviously, when we get more into conditions, we can determine whether it was printed out successfully or not, but we'll just assume everything is going to work great this time. And so let's see, we got a red squiggly line because it says, oh, we didn't return a value yet. So let's just say return, and we're going to return true. Fantastic. All right, so remember, Boolean is just true or false. It's not 0 and 1. It's simply in C# true or false. So now if we come up to our main, we need to capture that value into a variable. So I'll create a value. Did it print is print equals, and now that all looks good. I should be able to write line. Let's just write line is print and see what we get. Okay, fantastic. So let's run this and see what happens. Debug, start without debugging. I'll be somebody different this time. Lilo, I don't know how old she is, but I'm guessing she's about 9. And it all worked out just fine. Notice that when it printed the value that was held in the Boolean, it printed a capital T or a capital F if it was false. But when we assign it a value, we want to assign it a lowercase true or false. Kind of a little side note there. So we've now kind of done the whole gamut. We have sent a value back. We've received one or more parameters. We've used those values, and then we returned a value. So I think the last thing I want to share with you, just to kind of highlight this static portion, I'm going to right click on this right line, and I'm going to choose go to definition. And I just want to kind of elaborate on this static thing that we've been using. Whoa, that's a lot of right lines. So we see that we've got, let's go to the very top. The very top is the fact that we have somebody wrote in this namespace called system. Well, we're using this namespace, right? We've used that in our code. In fact, I think I can get very creative here and put this side by side so we can see it. Okay, so someone created a namespace called system. Our namespace is method example. So, and we use system, so we're using that namespace. And they have this class called console. Well, we're using that class, right? So we either use it here, or if we're doing this right line, we've also discovered that we could either type console and right line. Remember, console is the class name. So because this is static, we can access any of the methods within the console class by using the class name, period, and the right line. We also could get around that by using the using statements up above. So all of those are correct. So I'm just trying to give you the visual of how all of this is working. And then these are all methods within this class, console class. And I'm going to go back down to right line because that's the one that we've been using. And it says that we can right line. Let's see, I'm going to go to the right one I want to demonstrate. Here we go. So here's that's right. Let me find the right line one. Sorry about that. Right line string as value. This is the one I'm interested in. Okay. So it is a public method, so anybody can use it. Well, that's great because I'm anybody and I'm using it in right line. It's static, which means I can access it by just calling the class name, which I do. I do system.console and then the method name, which is right line. So I'm good there. So then it says it's not going to return anything. So I'm expecting it to do something, and it's giving me different options. That's interesting. That's something we haven't seen yet, and we will. I think I clicked on the wrong one. I wasn't anticipating. These are some of the parameters that it can receive. So we've got, and this is kind of a foreshadowing to what we're going to be doing very soon, but there's lots of right line methods. And you're saying, well, how can I have a method that has the same name? Well, these are actually kind of different methods. Even though the name is the same, all of these parameters are different. So this parameter says I can receive a string that it puts into value. So I have to send a string literal. Well, we've done that. And just the example above, I sent in a Boolean value. So I sent in a true or false. So because there's different parameters and all of these parameters are different, I can write a method that is different because all of the parameters are different. So even though the name is the same, the parameters are very different. And we will see that more in upcoming chapters. So this is kind of a foreshadowing. But I wanted you to see this public static void right line syntax that we've been using, and kind of try and get another feel for, because static's kind of confusing as to what it's trying to do. But what we're seeing here is that because this method is written using that static modifier, we can access that method by simply calling the class name. In this case, it was console, and then the method name. So hopefully that helps get you some beginning insight to not only what we're doing now, but what we're going to see in the near future. So that's methods.